everybody. This is Tara. Welcome to Unfiltered Perspectives. Things are going to be a little bit different today because I'm kind of hijacking this airtime. And instead of giving you an episode with my co hosts, Kimberly and Leslie, I will be introducing the very first episode of Raw Relationships Are Work. Welcome to the very first episode of Raw Relationships Are Work. I'm Tara, and I am so excited to be here. If you have ever been in a relationship, whether it's with a partner, a child, a friend, or even yourself, you know relationships are beautiful, but they are also messy. They require vulnerability, honesty, and a willingness to put in the work, even when it's hard. This podcast is all about getting into the real, raw side of relationships. We're going to talk about the highs and the lows, the struggles and the joys, and how through openness and growth, we can build healthier, stronger connections. Relationships aren't just about the happy things. They take effort, they take patience, and sometimes very uncomfortable conversations. But through it all, we come out stronger, better, and more connected. So whether you are working on a romantic relationship, a family dynamic, or just understanding yourself better, this space is for you. Remember, relationships may leave us feeling bruised at times, but in the end, they build us up and make us better. Now let's get real. Let's get raw, and remember, the best relationships are the ones worth working for. So, I was going to say, if you're new here, but since this is the first episode, we're all new here. But Raw is all about exploring the messy, beautiful, and sometimes tough aspects of relationships because, as I like to say, relationships are work, but the growth is worth it. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about understanding the issue of unequal contributions in relationships. And this is a pretty common challenge that many couples face, and it often stems from things like different expectations and even different backgrounds. And what do I mean by unequal contribution? Well, what I mean by that is it's when one partner feels like they're putting in more work, more effort, whether it's in chores, emotional support, or even decision making, while the other seems, and that is the key word here, seems less involved. And I say it that way because it's all a matter of perspective. But when this happens, this can create feelings of resentment, frustration, and eventually, almost always, will lead to conflict. So our individual backgrounds shape how we view relationships. Some people grow up in homes where everyone feels that they have an equal share in responsibilities, right? Everybody shares responsibilities equally. While in some families, they might have experienced a more traditional division of labor. For example, think about it. If you grew up watching your parents divide chores along gender lines, you might unconsciously carry those expectations into your adult relationships, whereas your partner may have experienced something completely different. And consider how your personal experiences influence your expectations. For instance, if one partner always managed finances or household duties alone, they may not realize that the other partner feels left out. And that doesn't even say anything about the emotional weight that often comes when you're feeling like you're carrying a heavier load, or you feel like your partner is shirking responsibility, or you feel like your partner is not interested in, helping you carry that burden, and you feel overwhelmed, you feel overworked, you feel overlooked, you feel overstressed. Just so many things. There's frustration, especially when someone feels that their efforts go unrecognized. There's resentment that can build up over time. And when that happens, you can have minor issues that turn into major conflicts. So, like, I once spoke with a couple where the wife felt like she said that she felt like a single parent, even though they were both working. She shared, I love him, but it feels like I'm doing it all by myself. And this kind of sentiment is more common than you might think. She felt like she was doing all, carrying that load of childcare, carrying that load of, maintaining the house and all of those things, all the things that come with making sure that your house runs smoothly or efficiently. And recognizing that her partner was her husband was there, but he felt the need to concentrate his contributions to the family in a different way. He was overstressing himself by bearing the burden of providing financially for the family, which meant working long hours. There are often times when he wasn't home, or when he was home, he was busy or stressed or clocked out because he needed to decompress. So there's a lot that goes into that. Take a moment to think about that and ask yourself, do you ever feel like you're carrying a heavier load in your relationship? And if you do, you're not alone, because today it's a common thing. So now that I've laid the groundwork a little bit, the question arises, how do you recognize signs of unequal contributions in your relationship? There are several ways, and we've talked about it briefly already, but it can be when one partner feels overwhelmed. Like if one person frequently complains about being stressed or overwhelmed, it could be a big sign that they're shouldering more than their fair share, whether that is by design or it just, something that happens gradually. It's something that needs to be addressed. Another sign is increased arguments, like tension a lot of times comes about around specific responsibilities. If arguments seem to revolve around chores or planning, finances, even, that's a red flag. Another sign could be emotional disconnection, where one partner may feel neglected because they're busy managing everything, or one partner may feel neglected because their partner is so busy managing everything that they feel that there's no attention being paid to them or their family, and that can lead to a lot of emotional distancing. For example, do you or your partner ever feel that the other is disengaged or uninvolved? Reflecting on these signs could be the very first step that you make towards addressing the actual issue, because that is the key. Once you notice something, don't just let it sit there. You have to address it. And that comes with effective communication. Let's move on to one of the most crucial aspects of overcoming unequal contributions, and that really is effective communication. I think the first step when it comes to that is choosing the right time. It's really important to find a calm moment to discuss your feelings rather than trying to bring them up during an argument. Timing is key. If you're bringing up these things during an argument, nobody is in a position to actually hear what the other person has to say, to consider the other person's feelings, to consider the other person's perspective or position. You're just going to be butting heads and you'll get nowhere. Another part of this is, in addition to choosing the right time, is using I statements. And that to me is a really important thing because it helps to express how you feel without placing blame on the other person. You're taking ownership of your feelings rather than projecting, I guess, onto the other person. Because if that happens, you're automatically setting up a situation where it's me versus you, where it's inherently a conflict. For example, I would say something like, I feel overwhelmed when the chores pile up. I feel overwhelmed when that basket of clothes just sits there. Instead of saying, you never help around the house, or, oh my gosh, can you please just fold those clothes because it's really getting on my nerves. Can you please just fold those clothes because, you're not doing anything else? That kind of thing. Another thing, in addition to choosing the right time, using I statements, is to practice active listening. By that, I mean, I'm encouraging both partners to listen, to understand, not just to respond. Lastly, or at least on, this list that I have here, lastly is to acknowledge contributions, regularly recognize and appreciate each other's efforts, even if they feel unequal, because your partner, to you, it may seem like they're doing the bare minimum, but to them, they could be knocking it out of the park. They could be. So, yeah, and to not be recognized for that effort, it can be disheartening. It can make them feel unappreciated. And even that you don't really fully value the time or the energy that they put into doing things to contribute. So now that we've talked a little bit about communication, let's talk about another way. Let's talk about how couples can find balance together. One way to do that is to sit down together and talk about who's responsible for what. Negotiate any changes that have to happen. If you're in a situation or a position where it doesn't just come naturally to pitch in, or when you see something that needs to be done, to just do it. Sometimes there has to be a sit down conversation that says, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 things that need to be done. Why don't we say right now at the outset, I will do this one, you do that one, I do this one, you do that one. That way there is a clear line. There's a clear understanding of what has to get done and what each person and what's expected of another person. And yeah, if you can chip in and help out on, it doesn't have to be a strict, like, I will only do this thing, I will only do that thing. But that's a start. They're using it as a starting point, not as something that's set in stone, so that at the bare minimum, you do the things that are assigned to you. However, yeah, go ahead and help out with the other things. Yeah, go ahead and branch out and do something else too. Things like that are what will help. So yeah, you negotiate your responsibilities. You have brainstorming sessions where each person creates a list of the tasks and share how they feel about each one. I think I related on another platform how there are certain things that I that I don't do in my home, and my husband has graciously taken on those responsibilities. I think the one thing in particular that I'm talking about was, let's say, cleaning the shower. Okay, cleaning the shower is something that he does. It's something that I don't do. He has special tools and everything to get the job done. And my job, since I don't do the hard labor of getting there with those brushes and doing what we have to do to make sure everything sparkles and the glass is clear, the only thing he asks of me is that when I shower, I use a squeegee to keep it clean, or to remove the watermarks and stuff like that, or to not use certain products because it causes a buildup. That makes his task even harder. It's a small ask. It's a small ask. And so I do what he asks so that it makes the job easier for him, because he's taken on this task that I just don't want to do. And so again, we're balancing here. In addition to negotiating these responsibilities, in addition to brainstorming about what feels good and what doesn't, a list of tasks that have to be completed and those things, it's also probably a good idea to make sure that you have some kind of understanding of a shared calendar, so that one person doesn't think, well, I'm doing my thing every day. When is she going to do her thing? So you know when certain things will get done. You're not so that you're standing there nagging the person to get it done, but you have an idea of, it's not done right now, but I know that by Tuesday, this particular thing will be done, so that you don't feel compelled to, like, yourself go off and, like, it's still not done. Let me do it now. And then you have this resentment. Well, I'm doing my thing and that person thing too because they didn't, live up to their responsibility and to get it done. But if you have an expectation of what things have to get done and when they will get done, that eliminates that source of conflict, that source of resentment. At least it should. At least it should. Maybe have regular check-in sessions where you're just making sure that you're all still on the same page. Make sure everyone's happy with the way things are going. And if any adjustments have to get made, you sit down and you make them. And as always, again, nothing has to be set in stone. It doesn't have to be something that's especially rigid. Allow for some flexibility. Understand that some contributions may vary due to work schedules or personal challenges. So be open to reassessing what those responsibilities are as needed. And basically, I think one of the key points I want to bring out is that when you recognize and you address these types of issues, it can really strengthen your relationships. When I think about signs of unequal contribution, there are two areas, I think, where we see a lot of the conflict in relationships, and that is the part we've already discussed, like chores around the house. But another thing is when we talk about financial responsibilities. And we're going to go into this a little bit more in the next session where we're going to talk about the financial compatibility in relationships. But in the case we're talking about here, we're talking about financial responsibilities. So in one area that this comes up that I've observed is when we're talking about the impact of one partner handling all the finances, right? In situations like that, there can be resentment and stress. The partner who manages the finances may feel burdened by that responsibility. They might think, why am I the only one who cares about our financial situation? This can lead to feelings of resentment when their partner doesn't seem involved or aware of the financial stressors. But from the other partner's perspective, you get this. The partner who is less involved or who seems less involved might feel powerless or even uninformed, thinking, I wish I could contribute more, but I don't know what's going on. And this can create frustration. It can lead them to withdraw or even disengage further. So I have a real life example, right? So I've spoken to couples where one partner handles all the finances while the other doesn't engage at all. And this can create feelings of powerlessness and resentment on both sides. For example, so there's this couple where the husband managed all the bills, all the budgeting, and the wife felt disconnected from their financial goals and was unsure about even what their financial health was. And when they finally discussed it, they realized that their silence around money had created a really big, a really tall, a really thick wall between them. The husband felt unappreciated, while the wife felt left out, excluded from an essential part of their life together. So take a moment for yourself, right? Take a moment to think about it. Are you in a situation where one partner is managing the finances? How does that impact your feelings and overall dynamic in your relationship? When we recognize these signs, again, recognizing the signs can be the first step towards addressing the issue. It has to be. It has to be the first step because if you don't know that there's an issue, if you don't know there's a problem, there's nothing to address, right? Another thing you see here, though, are also power dynamics, right? When one partner sees the bills and the cash flow, while the other feels the need to sometimes maybe even account for every spending decision, it can create a really, I guess, untenable power dynamic. The partner managing the finances may feel in control, while the other can feel scrutinized and powerless. This imbalance, I think, puts pressure on the term, and I'm doing air quotes here, partnership, because it fosters feelings of inequality. So just think about this. Are you in a situation where, one partner is managing the finances? How does that impact your feelings? Like, right? And basically the overall dynamic in your relationship. So as we explore the theme of unequal contributions in relationships, I really want to reflect on Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, which reminds us to bear one another's burdens. And this verse beautifully captures the essence of partnership and relationship, where one partner feels overwhelmed by responsibilities. It's crucial for both partners to step in and support one another. Recognizing that both of you share the burdens can create a more balanced dynamic and foster a deeper connection. And by actively discussing responsibilities and understanding each other's challenges, understanding each other's perspectives, and having a plan to actually address them, to bring them more into balance, to work together to lighten the load and strengthen the partnership. It's about working together to fulfill the commitment that you've made to one another. So, as we wrap up this first episode, I hope that you've gained some insights into recognizing and addressing unequal contributions in your relationship. Remember, a healthy partnership thrives on open communication, it thrives on mutual respect, and it thrives on shared responsibilities. And by being proactive and working together to balance your roles, you can really, really enhance the connection that you have and build a stronger foundation for your relationship. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Raw Relationships at Work. If you found this discussion helpful, please take a moment to rate and subscribe. New episodes will drop on the second and fourth Sundays of every month, so please be sure to tune in for our next episode where I'll be talking about financial compatibility, which is an essential topic for any partnership. And don't forget, I want to hear from you. So if you have a question, a comment, or you want to be a guest on the show, please email me at relationshipsarework@gmail.com.